Welcome back to Morgan's video blog, Morgan's online blog in video format. Today I'm here to share with you World Fantasy Con, Writers Workshops, and NaNoWriMo. Oh my! Your friendly neighborhood writer, blogger, vlogger, voice actress has been busy. 2 weekends ago, I attended a writers workshop put on by my local writers group, Right by the Rails, and unfortunately I had to miss the end of it. Why, you might ask? Because I had to hit my local NaNoWriMo kickoff party. And then, this past week, my day job was busy enough that I could take Friday off without having to use any vacation leave to attend World Fantasy Con, which included my panel debut. And of course, that doesn't include finishing up OctPoWriMo, Halloween, keeping up with this blog and vlog, and a little thing called NaNoWriMo. It's been a little frantic here at Morgan's Lair. As always, I'll be sharing all my panel notes, although some were more recommended reading lists, but first, let me share my experiences with you. Let's start chronologically, mostly. The writing workshop. It was a cool, rainy fall Saturday morning when I parked on the street in front of the full parking lot and prayed that I'd read the parking restrictions correctly. I asked a gentleman walking across the parking lot if I was in the right place, and he said yes. So I followed the sidewalk to the side door and found myself in the foyer of the church where the workshop was scheduled. Once I'd hung up my jacket, got my name tag, and corrected my nameplate, I found a seat at one of the round tables in the, meeting room. There were several round tables, so I aimed for the middle of the room so I could see everything. I pulled out my notepad, introduced myself to everyone at my table, and settled in. As always, the Right by the Rails crowd was very enthusiastic, supportive, and welcoming. The first panel was on marketing and took a local view. Most of the tips were more useful for nonfiction or writing articles and novels set in the local area, but there was information for book launches and more. We took a short break and I looked at the books that were for sale around the room by the local writers. And I have to say, my local area has a lot of really good books. Our authors have great looking books that look very professional, even the self-published ones, mostly. So I may have bought a series that is on my very, very overfull to read shelf. Next up was a panel on memoirs. I'm not sure if I'll ever be open to writing a memoir, but it was fascinating to hear the thought process that goes into it and how it differs from a biography, plus the process for finding a theme that ties the whole thing together. I didn't realize that memoirs were so theme-driven. Finally, the topic nearest and dearest to my heart, fiction novels. The panelists were skilled, knowledgeable, and wrote in my genre. What more could, a panel attendee ask for? Although there were 4 panels, marketing, memoirs, novel writing, and poetry, I missed that last one. As always, I took copious notes, and yet, despite my OctPoWriMo inspired interest in writing poetry, I'd already committed to attending my local NaNoWriMo kickoff party. So, as the novel writing portion of the workshop wrapped up, I scurried out the door and headed north. I looked up the address and I thought I was going somewhere new, and then I realized my local region had 2 different events at the same time. And whew, the event was actually where it had been last year, so I knew how to get there. And it was like 20 minutes closer. So I joined NaNoWriMo seriously in 2013, but I didn't attend my first in-person event until after I'd started this blog. This year was my 3rd kickoff party. I like going and meeting people in my local writing community. There's different circles and they overlap a little, but not as much as you'd think. And last weekend and the weekend before, I was definitely pulling out my inner extrovert. Or is it an outer extrovert? Whatever. I drove through the rain and made it to the library's basement parking deck 10 minutes before kickoff time. I headed up the stairs, finding a conference room right where I'd remembered it from last year. It's the first room you get to at the top of the stairs. I held my breath, hoping that they'd actually scheduled it in the same room. I peeked in and spotted the chairs in a circle and tables set up for food and drink, and took a big sigh of relief, headed in, signed up, added my genre and motivation to the group display board as requested. I snagged a raffle ticket. They said put your name on it, but it's already numbered. And picked out my seat right in front of the snack table. Once we hit quorum, everyone was asked to introduce themselves, share their NaNoWriMo forum name, year's writing, and talk about this year's project. When they got to me, my regional liaisons introduced me as our resident blogger, so I knew what I had to do. Hi, my name is Morgan Hazelwood. You can find me on the forums as Morgan Hazelwood, and since I'm our resident blogger, you can find my blog at morganhazelwood.com. My liaison goes, that's how you do branding. So remember that raffle ticket? When we got to the raffle, which was really a selection of what order we got to hit the raffle table to pick out something, I got made fun of for being basically the only person who didn't put their name on the raffle ticket after all that branding. Next time I'll remember. So I re-met people from previous years. I chatted with first-timers and never finishers, and I hope to see most of them. It's good to know who you might see at a write-in, so if you do show up and hang out at Panera and get them to bring food to your table, that you've at least met the people once before you show up and look around lost and confused. Also, this year our region has a Discord channel, so we can do writing sprints. I'm already kind of addicted to those, and chat with other people in our region. And I hit the snack table while I was there. I ate probably a little too much. I couldn't even finish my amazingly decadent peanut butter cupcake. It was delicious, though. So, this is still back in October, so what else was I doing? OctPoWriMo. Until OctPoWriMo, my main experiences writing poetry were for class assignments and teenage flirtations with boys and paganism. I think my biggest surprise was how quickly I could turn a theme into a poem that I didn't hate and maybe even kind of liked. I don't think I spent more than 15 minutes on any of them except the sonnet, not counting typos while inking them. Overall, I would write poetry again, either for a themed contest or an anthology, or just as a writing exercise to either get the words flowing or to let me do something creative when I'm stuck in the editing doldrums. But yeah, OctPoWriMo, I would suggest giving it a try next year and seeing if it works for you. I think it was easier to write poetry for a theme, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't write some if I was inspired. So, of course, that wasn't all I was doing in the last 2 weeks. Clearly, I was doing poetry roundups and author spotlights and vlogging and blogging, because you saw it all here. Last week's vlog and blog post were done after spending from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. handing out candy. You might have noticed by the button eyes. While I was handing out candy, I was also debugging for my day job. And after the kids went away, I finished drafting this post, and I set up my camera and went to work. After my second take, I thought it was good, and I played it back, and the audio was not great. I'm having trouble with my camera. I hope to replace it soon, but I've been busy. So I tried this camera, I tried my laptop camera, but this one ended up being better. So this is what you get. I apologize. I hope to get it fixed soon. After I posted last week's video blog, I finished or got together most of the stuff I needed to pack for the convention, and at midnight I managed to squeak in 110 words for NaNoWriMo. Then I went to bed because it had been a long day. I've been working on making my non-panel write-ups more personalized. Let me know if these are working for you. Let me know if you'd rather have more writing tips, more personalized posts, or something else entirely. I'm not saying I'll listen to your suggestions, but I'm happy to listen to them. Wait, I'm not saying I'll follow them, but I will listen. So let me know. So getting back to those 110 words I squeaked in before midnight, how is my NaNoWriMo progress going so far? Well, my November kicked off with a 12-hour day at work and a planned 2-hour drive to Baltimore. With work keeping me as late as it ended up doing, though, the drive was cut to 1 hour and 20 minutes. But I did spend a little too long hanging out in the con suite, saying hi to people and finding out that Reg is not open at 10:15 in the evening on a Thursday. I ended up squeaking in about 660 words on day 1, 1,000 shy of the target. On day 2, I found the NaNoWriMo room at World Fantasy Con. I settled in and squeaked out exactly 1,667 words. It was a great space and something I really hope that other cons will do in the future. The only thing I would have added is extension cords. They had power strips, I think enough power strips, but they were right against the wall and not near the tables. At other events, the space might even work for artists who are sketching or people who want to quietly read books or catch up on their social media. Day 3 of NaNoWriMo, I was still at the con, and my writing break was cut short. I was about 250 words short of the target because I had to stop and go to a panel. My debut as a panelist. After all the panels I've written up, this is the first one I've actually been a participant in. On day 4, between getting home, a nap, visiting with my brother, which means, eating sushi and watching The Good Place, I managed to squeak in my daily target of words before midnight, but overall was lagging almost a full day behind. Fortunately, I'd taken Monday off work. When it comes to conventions, I know I will overdo it, exhaust myself, and there's a big chance that being with all those strangers who have been traveling, somebody's going to try and get me sick. I find if I can't take the day off after a con, I usually can schedule with work to come in late, and I basically sleep until done before trying to go into work. I highly recommend it if your work will work with you at all. Which brings us, of course, to the con. First up, let me talk about the location. It's at the Baltimore Renaissance Hotel, which is in downtown Baltimore. There's lots of food places within walking distance, but it's pretty expensive and the parking's ridiculous. However, for me, the first con I really attended as an adult was at the Gaylord National in National Harbor, Maryland, right across the border from Arlington, Virginia, which means there are very few places that would give me sticker shock. And the Renaissance's layout has nothing on the Gaylord, where only 1/3 of the elevators even reach the conference center. Coming in the night before was really nice. It made my days less rushed and meant I could hit all the panels I wanted. I got a good night's sleep and I didn't have to worry about traffic. Luckily, my budget worked with it, or I'd accidentally made the reservation for Thursday, so it worked out. Plus, I gotta get through Reg before the crowd showed up after work on Friday. Although crowd is kind of relative, Balticon is noticeably larger in the same space, even when it's not the 50th anniversary with George R. R. Martin and hordes of people following him. At World Fantasy Con, I was also on staff. In the past, I've worked guest relations for an anime con, liaisoning with invited panelists and speakers, making sure that their transportation and sleeping arrangements are made, that their table, should they need it, helping them set up and man it, seeing that they're fed and hydrated, and making sure that, of course, they make it to those obligatory panels where everyone is coming to see them. That job is 24/7 from the day before the con till the day after. For World Fantasy, that is not what I agreed to do. I signed up to staff the con suite. For those of you who don't know, the con suite is a thing that exists at most fan-run conventions. Typically, it's a hotel suite with snacks to tide one over. We know that many people attending cons are on a budget and might not have food money built in. And it's also a place to hang out and chat with your friends past midnight that isn't trying to sell you drinks and other things. At World Fantasy, they kicked it up a notch. They had slow cooker oatmeal in the mornings, full sandwich spreads, hot dinners, and leftovers from all the receptions. Not to mention, of course, the expected snacks and candies. Plus, as a new staff member whose schedule did not, unfortunately, permit me to assist with loading in or unloading all the stuff and supplies, they'd scheduled me from 7 p.m. until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. And that's it. So that left my days free for panels, because the panels at World Fantasy were only from like 10 to 5 were the main ones. By getting out at 11:30, I still had time to hit most of the parties and BarCon, i.e. the hotel bar where most of the writers, editors, and people hang out and catch up with each other and also try to network. I did end up missing the mass book signing reception and the art gallery receptions, which were a lot more formal than I'm used to, but I don't know what I would have traded to miss instead, so it worked out. As always at a con, new friends are one of the highlights. I did a lot of networking and a lot of meeting new friends. As a second-generation geek, I'd been introduced to one of the con chairs back in May at Balticon, where, because of my rooming situation, I ended up helping him host the DC 2021 WorldCon bid party. So bid parties are usually done by cities who want a traveling convention. World Fantasy is one, and WorldCon is a different one. WorldCon is where I went, what I attended in Helsinki last year. That's where the Hugos are voted on. So while I was at the WorldCon bid party, I met the person who is the con chair for World Fantasy this year, and he invited me to staff the con suite. So also, every time I ran into him at World Fantasy, he introduced me to new people that were pretty awesome, and he also helped me raid the con suite after hours for a post-daylight savings time rollback snack, because when you eat at like 6, you get pretty hungry by 2 a.m. the second time around. I ended up staying up past 2 a.m. both Friday and Saturday night, talking to new people that I'd met and just hanging out. In the con suite, I met a ton of people, some new people, some vaguely remembered people, and some fondly remembered. I chatted with them, shared my business cards and Anansi's business cards. Anansi, like the spider. I made that distinction quite clear many times throughout the weekend. And I found several more writers, bloggers, and artists that I need to follow. Plus, I'm now a member of Broad Universe. It's an inclusive network to support women science fiction, fantasy, and horror writers. As part of their real-world support methods, they get tables at conventions that members can use for free. Well, as long as they sign up to staff it. And they organize group readings, and you should check out the website. It's broaduniverse.org, I believe. I even networked on the elevator ride on my way out on Sunday afternoon. The gentleman emailed me back on Monday with links to his fantasy novel and several of his nonfiction works, which all sounded pretty good. I am thusly reminded to do my own follow-ups. When you meet people at cons, especially if you get their card, it's nice to send them a thank you note, letting them know that you remember which person they were, especially if you want to keep contact with them. Which brings us to the last thing I did at World Fantasy Con, which is my debut panel. Dun dun dun. At 5 p.m. on Saturday, I made my debut as a panelist. I suggested several writing topics like beta reading, editing, querying, even social media, stuff I chat a lot about on this blog. Instead, they'd realized I listed voice actor on my list of qualifications. I am a voice actor for Anansi Storytime, the folktale audio drama podcast, and of course, as you know, I have my Lazy Ladies vlog with no edits. Thus, I found myself on the Talking the Talk audiobooks from Fantasy Works panel. The panel was moderated by Gabrielle Kay, an award-winning fantasy novelist, and my fellow panelists were Simon Vance of over 1,000 audiobooks, literally, and Jessica Elbert from the small press EWC in Canada, where she manages the casting and creation of their audiobooks. Guy Kay took his job as a moderator very seriously and reached out to all of us a week before the con. Showing he'd clearly researched all of us, he eagerly offered to pivot the panel to include my experiences and discuss the differences between podcasting and audiobooks and the difference between managing a voice project and being in one. The night before the panel, I organized all my notes as if I were about to vlog, made sure to get all the equipment and process details from my Anansi producer in case questions got technical, and I put them in a notebook that sat on my lap the entire panel without getting opened. Guy K was looking at his note of questions, but nobody else was looking at anything. In person, Guy K was no less gentlemanly and thorough, taking time to cater each question to address our specific specialities. I managed to provide a few answers that I was pretty proud of. But at one point, I'd answered a question, and I knew I had, but it kind of rambled, so I wanted to get to a conclusion, and I couldn't remember the exact question. So I turned to Guy K and said, "I'm sorry, I got lost. What was the question again?" Not my best moment. As soon as I got back to my room after the panel, I realized what I should have said, and will say, hopefully in the future. Does that answer your question? When you can't sum up, does that answer your question? Trying to remember that. A friend I'd met a few Balticons ago was there, and he knew it was my debut panel, and he took a picture for me before the panel, and I swung by and thanked him after the panel, where he gave me a quick post-mortem, a very favorable one. So thank you, you know who you are. Overall, I feel that my performance was solid and that I could have really shown on the topics that I blog about. So I think I'm going to volunteer again to be on more panels. And that's it. That's it. That's what I've been up to for the last 2 ridiculous weeks. What have you been up to? Let me know. As always, feel free to subscribe and tune in next week for more writing tips and writerly musings. Bye-bye.